Okay, so we had a few questions submitted ahead of time that related to mHealth and digital technologies. Can you tell me from your end, is your company seeing more requests for companies wanting to directly capture data from devices like Fitbits and watches and patches and other devices?
Oh, definitely. There's a big push to mHealth data. I'm not so sure it's the Fitbit. That's always been the example, as
Yeah,
much as real medical devices that, you could rely on the data. Sometimes the Fitbit is fun facts to know and tell, are you active and stuff. But there's a lot of devices out there that capture, movement, sleep, you name it, blood glucose, there's a million devices, not a million, but there's many devices out there that can be used to do clinical trials and weight scales even. And so I think they're becoming more and more prevalent, and that's for both patient convenience and collection at the point of contact, right? Or, it's one thing coming into a clinic and seeing how much you weigh, or like you said, how did you sleep last week? It's like, I don't know. I'm not even sure how I slept last night. And so being able to collect data at the actual point of action, and is really valuable. And to the extent that it could be made convenient, it becomes very important. You're seeing a lot more therapeutic areas where quality of life is a very important measure. It's not necessarily the primary endpoint, but it certainly is a secondary endpoint. And you've seen drugs approved just on quality of life improvements over time that are equal to start have certain efficacy. And those are best asked, as you mentioned, in diaries. Ask someone how they slept the night before is a whole lot easier, or to wear something that tells them how they slept, or ask them how they were during the course of the day is a lot easier if you ask them then than if you ask them later. And
sure.
so getting that accurate data that you can rely on, I think, is extremely, extremely important. And we are seeing a lot more requests. We've built a whole infrastructure around being able to collect data from devices and bring it in accordingly and understand where it came from and how it was collected and all those things to keep track of the lineage, like I keep referring to. But it's becoming more and more popular. And again, you want to talk about burden of systems. Each one of those devices has a vendor behind it, and each one of those vendors has their own little system behind it, and each one of those is a different provisioning problem. How do I get them into countries like Brazil? And so with each one of these devices comes a whole host of issues that need to be thought about for the pharma companies to figure out, is this device worth it? Can I use it where I'm trying to use it, in the countries that I'm trying to use it? And we'll collect the data reliably. So it's a challenge, but we're getting a lot more of it.
And I believe in your answer to the first question, you mentioned EDC and EHRs. I know EHRs, EMRs are becoming much more important to clinical research than they ever were in the past. But are pharma companies integrating EDC with EMR, and are you seeing any trends around that, or seeing pharma companies or CROs requesting that capability?
So we're seeing a lot more requests for it, and we have the ability to automatically go out to the HR systems and bring the data into a screen and show that it came from the HR. What I see in the industry in general when I talk to customers about EHR is, first of all, there's a new acronym called real world evidence or real world data. But you see a few uses for it. One of the big ones that's getting a lot of good use is protocol validation. So being able to go against EHRs and seeing if there are the inclusion-exclusion criteria, if there are patients that meet your inclusion-exclusion criteria, where they're located, is medicine practiced that way? It's a very powerful way of using EHRs. The other way that you're starting to see talk about is building placebo arms off of EHR data. So synthetic placebo arms in certain therapeutic areas, or comparative arms, you could mine the EHR data and actually create, outcomes for certain drugs that were in use, if that's your comparative going forward. Like if you're doing a new statin, maybe you could do an arm against, Lipitor or something. And the last thing that I've seen is there's a diabetic drug, can't remember the name of it offhand, but Sanofi had a type 2 diabetes drug that, based on off-label prescribing that they found within the EHRs, they were able to get approval for type 1 diabetes in the United States, just to offer the real world data that was based upon the efficacy that was out there. And they were able to prove to the agencies that the data was good. So as that data becomes more ubiquitous, and as that data becomes available for use, I think there's a lot that's going to be going on in terms of using that data. And it's up to us technology vendors to make sure that it's available to be gotten. It's not up to us to say what it's good for, but it's up to us to make sure you can get it.